Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a big board draft over on Underdog Fantasy. This is a 20-round best ball draft, $10 to enter on Underdog Fantasy, $200,000 to first place, 112,800 entrants. This is a big best ball tournament. If you've never played best ball is regular fantasy football, except there are more rounds. There are 20 rounds in this draft. There's no kicker and there's no defense, and there's no waiver wire. You draft your team, you set it, and you forget about it. The computer will automatically put the best lineup in and week out for you with the highest point scores at the end of the week. It's like a mock draft, but people are actually putting money down, and you can win a serious amount of money if you end up winning. So we're going to get on into things here. I hope you guys do end up enjoying. If you do, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave a comment down below. I love you guys all so much. Let's get into the draft. All right, so we just got on into the draft. We are the 101, the number one overall pick. Right now, I honestly don't really have a preference on where to draft in fantasy football this season. Normally, I am someone who likes to pick closer to the end, but at number one, you can do whatever you want. So we're just going to go with the best wide receiver available, going with Justin Jefferson. I think a lot of people this fantasy football season are going to be pushing for that wide receiver early. I think running backs are becoming less of a hot asset inside of the first round. Now, does that mean that running backs are going to be overwhelmed in a majority of drafts by the amount of people taking wide receivers? Maybe, maybe not, because I think in a lot of redraft leagues, people are set in their ways that running backs are how you win your fantasy football league, that you need to draft running backs very early on. And my thought process on this right now is kind of just to do what I always do. Zig when the others are zagging, or zag when the others are zigging. Meaning, if in the first couple of picks, everyone's going wide receiver, and you love, say, Austin Eckler at the 5th, the 6th pick, then go right ahead and take Austin Eckler. Kind of mold your draft strategy to the draft that you are in, and don't just go into the draft set on one draft strategy. Now, obviously, if you know you're the number one overall pick, then you can go into the draft understanding that, hey, I want Justin Jefferson, and you take Justin Jefferson. But I think if you're like the 5 or 6 spot, don't just handicap yourself thinking, I need to get this certain player, because sometimes that player may not even be there. So Justin Jefferson, then we see Christian McCaffrey, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, Travis Kelce, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Austin Eckler, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams, and Jonathan Taylor. So out of the first round, 1, 2, 3, 4 non-running backs or non-wide receivers, 3 of them running backs, and 1 tight end. I think this really is going to be the year where everyone is just sold on the fact that if you want to get a tight end, you want to get the tight end, you draft Travis Kelce in the first round. Now, I think in most leagues, he won't be the 5th overall pick. I think he's going to be closer to pick 9, 10, 11, or 12. But I definitely understand the thought process when everyone is scrambling to pick a tight end every single week, when people are picking up off the waiver wire. Now, this is a best ball draft, so there is no waiver wire. But in your regular league, people are panicking, trying to find a tight end to start every single week. And you are just locked into so many points with Travis Kelce. The upside is so huge. He's probably one of 3 tight ends you can see on a weekly basis potentially score 20 plus fantasy points, and he's probably the only guy that I would say you could assume could score 30 points in any given week, and it wouldn't surprise you. Now, obviously, a guy like Mark Andrews, George Kittle, could they score 30 points? Yes, but it would come to more of a surprise than a guy like Travis Kelce. Bijan Robinson starts the second round, followed by CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Waddle, Jalen Hurts. I think it's very interesting this year to see how early the quarterbacks have been going right now in drafts. We just saw 3 quarterbacks in a row, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. Will that be the case in redraft leagues come late August, early September? Will people still be paying up the big price for a guy like Hurts, Allen, Mahomes? See, I wouldn't be surprised at all if someone takes a quarterback in my redraft league in the second round. But my question is, will it be how it has been in a lot of these drafts on Underdog, where there's potentially 5, 6 quarterbacks taken before the 4th round even comes to a close? Because at some point, I think there's a pretty strong fall off at the quarterback position around Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, and I think people are still reaching on the other guys, which I think is a little bit crazy. So we're back up on the board here. We got Justin Jefferson, back-to-back picks here. I think we're just going to keep things simple. We don't really want to overthink. A lot of wide receivers have been taken off the board, and we're not just going to go ahead and hop onto the wide receiver train. We're just going to go ahead and draft Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry has the upside to be a top 3 running back again in fantasy football. What team will he be on is certainly unknown as of right now because the Titans are rumored to be looking to trade him, but I do think he still has that great upside. And then we are going to keep things simple again, not overthink things, and go with Breece Hall. If Breece Hall played all of last season, he probably would have finished as a top 5, top 8 running back in his rookie year. He's now coming into his second year. Now, I understand he got hurt, but it wasn't like he got hurt in week 15. He got hurt very early on in the season. I believe the Jets want to use that workhorse running back role. I think Breece Hall is going to be dominant in this situation. There's a lot of talk about Aaron Rodgers right now. The quarterback situation is certainly an unknown for the Jets right now, but I still do believe in terms of talent, Breece Hall is one of the most talented running backs in the NFL. I was also considering going Josh Jacobs in that spot. The team franchise tags Josh Jacobs. I love Josh Jacobs in Viva Las Vegas, even though their quarterback situation is also doesn't have a pretty bow on it, right? Carr's in New Orleans. Who's the quarterback going to be? We're not too sure. Same thing with Breece Hall, but again, I think Josh Jacobs really is that guy. We've seen so many kind of bright spots of Josh Jacobs. The problem was he just never really was all that consistent, and he wasn't catching passes, and now he's been catching more passes. And I really thought that with Josh McDaniels coming in there, it was very clear that it was going to be a running back by committee, and then obviously it was the complete and utter opposite of that. So the third round opens with our selection of Breece Hall, followed by Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, Josh Jacobs, and Tony Pollard. So again, while people are, as Pete Overzet would say, pissing yellow early on, right? People are drafting the wide receivers very early, and often I've noticed a lot in the third round, there's a lot of value at running back. You can find Derrick Henry, who's been a perennial first-round pick. You can find Breece Hall, who's a guy that wouldn't surprise me if he's a second-round draft pick in a majority of drafts come late August. So again, while these drafts, these best ball drafts are fun, I am very excited to do these because I want to see maybe I could take home that big prize pool that we talked about off the rip of the video. But it's very interesting because of the fact that this isn't necessarily how a real redraft draft will go. And I think a reason why most people like these drafts is because people are putting money up. They're putting their money up, so you're not going to get someone drafting a kicker or defense in the first 2 rounds because there are no kickers and defenses, but people take it a little bit more seriously, though I do genuinely believe that we're not going to see a guy like Derrick Henry fall to the 212 in a lot of redraft leagues. I think that would be a little bit crazy. So after Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Hopkins, who seems to be on the move, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, Deebo Samuel, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Ramondre Stevenson, and Najee Harris to begin the 4th round. So Calvin Ridley posted on Twitter this whole expose, this big kind of thing that he wrote about his life and his struggles recently, and it was really touching to read. If you want to read it, go right ahead. I thought it was a very good read. Calvin Ridley gets now off the commissioner's exempt list. Look, I think Calvin Ridley is an incredible talent, coming off of basically barely playing in 2021, right? He played in 5 games. Doesn't play in 2022 because of the suspension. How good can Calvin Ridley be at the age he's at? Now, I'm not saying he's fallen off the edge of the earth. He's not like 35 years old, right? He's like 28, 29. He's getting up there in age. Will he be able to make that splash that's worthy of a 3rd-round pick in fantasy drafts right now? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That makes me much more excited to draft a guy like Christian Kirk, his teammate, especially when I feel like this Jacksonville Jaguars offense is on this crazy kind of ascent right there, going to the moon. After Najee, we see Mike Williams, Christian Watson, Jerry Jeudy, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, Christian Kirk, and Justin Fields. So we did see people calm their titties a little bit, as they would say, on the quarterback position. The tight ends, Kelsey in the 1st, no other tight end until the 4th round. Very interesting to see how people kind of deal with Joe Burrow off the board. Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is one of, in my opinion, the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but he doesn't have a home yet. And there's reports of people thinking that the NFL owners are kind of fucking him over here. They're not doing certain things for him. There should be teams looking into him. No one's looking into him. It's very weird to see. But I think Lamar Jackson's still a pretty big value in the 4th round. So after Justin Fields, we see Joe Burrow, Michael Pittman, and Justin Herbert, the pervert. We're back up on the board here. Really just depends if we want to go youth or not between DJ Moore and Drake London. I think Drake London should have a really good year as the Atlanta Falcons' #1 wide receiver. I think he's incredibly talented, and I think this is going to be a big step up for him, assuming that the quarterback position isn't as dog shit as last year. And maybe the team doesn't look to run as much super late in games, even when they're getting dogged out. I'm drafting Lamar Jackson here. I know a lot of people are kind of not off of Lamar Jackson, but a little bit more hesitant to draft Lamar Jackson. The biggest downside of drafting Lamar Jackson right now is in best ball, you're kind of trying to link your quarterback with their wide receivers, their tight ends, right? You're trying to stack for that maximum outcome. Right now, who is the stacking partner of Lamar Jackson? The answer is we have no fucking idea. The Ravens he could easily be back on the Baltimore Ravens this year. Another team could be interested in what happens if Rodgers doesn't go to the Jets. Did the Jets come riding back aggressively looking for Lamar Jackson? Maybe. Could the Buccaneers, who I don't think the Buccaneers are going to actually do this, but could the Buccaneers be like, hey, we have a pretty decent team. Why not get Lamar? Right? There's a lot of teams that are fending, in my opinion, for Lamar Jackson. While it might not seem like from the outside looking in right now that there's going to be a bunch of teams fiending for Lamar Jackson, I have to think with how fucking good this guy is, people are going to want him. My prediction right now, though, what team is he going to be on? Right now, it kind of feels like the Ravens, though, if I'm being honest. After Lamar, we see Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, JSN, Jackson Smith, Najigba, Jahmyr Gibbs. I almost called him Jeremy Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, George Kittle-Me-Timbers, Hollywood Brown, Chris Godwin, and DeAndre Swift. I love Hollywood Brown this year in Arizona. DeAndre Hopkins seems like he is on his way out. This seems like the perfect scenario for Hollywood Brown to transcend and have that huge year. With that said, I'll probably end up sucking because, right, they're not going to have Kyler Murray for the first couple of games, and maybe everything turns into a disaster. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I like Hollywood Brown. The 5th round closes with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Pitts, followed by Dallas Goedert, Tyler Lockett in my pocket skirt, J.K. Dobbins, Trevor Lawrence, Ron Jones. Interesting to see the 2 tight end build there in the 5th and 6th round. I understand it in best ball. In redraft, there is no way I'm doing that. Mike Evans, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is pretty interesting, right? He's the lead back in Green Bay. I guess we just don't know the quarterback situation there, but it's either going to be Love or it's going to be Rodgers. So I think Aaron Jones is in good hands. Mike Evans, Brandon Ayuk. The running backs at this point in the draft are just gross. Joe Mixon potentially shot someone, so that doesn't sound the best. Javonte Williams could miss some time, but I think Javonte Williams is probably the most interesting back here. Dameon Pierce, I think, is amazing, but could the Texans just do a 360 and just draft a running back? Yes, and then you're kind of fucked with Dameon Pierce. Look at the tight ends here. We're kind of at the point where the tight ends have fallen off to where I'm just punting the position. We have our quarterbacks. We don't really have to panic about that, but it is important in these big board best ball drafts that you snag 2-3 quarterbacks in these drafts. But again, not right now. So looking at the running backs and wide receivers available as the position we're kind of hitting on right here. I don't love George Pickens. I think we're just going to go ahead and kind of scroll down a little bit and go with Quentin Johnston. I think that this guy, he looks really good out of college. I think that he could slot in as the #1 wide receiver on certain teams, and I think if he's given the chance, he could really excel, and his ADP might be the 3rd, 4th round come August once people know what team he is on. And then we're going to go ahead and just go with another running back and then kind of fade away. We went running backs early. Now we don't have to worry too much about it. We're going to go with Javonte Williams. Now, again, Javonte Williams could be a huge risk to this roster because maybe Javonte Williams misses 5, 6, 7, 8 games and I look like a fool. Or maybe in late August, early September, the talks are Javonte Williams is good to go for week 1. Or maybe he's going to play week 1, they ramp him up, and he's going to be fully good to go by week 3, right? Where we're going to see his normal usage. If that is the case, then in the 7th round, with the running backs we already have, we have built a grouping of 3 running backs that all have top 5 potential. Will Sean Payton be able to actually fix this offense with all the bullshit we saw with Nathaniel Hackett last year, with Russell Wilson cooking up basically a fucking fire in the metaphorical house of the Denver Broncos? I'm not too sure, but I do know that this team's committed to Javonte Williams. He will bring up, but Nick, they're going to bring in other running backs. Of course they're going to bring in other running backs. I think the only other running back on contract is Chase Edmonds. They're going to have to bring someone else in, but I genuinely believe when healthy, Javonte Williams is that guy. If you have ended up enjoying this far, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hit that like button. We're going to be doing a bunch more best ball drafts as we get closer to fantasy football draft season. Again, if you want to take advantage of this, you want to join Underdog Fantasy, like doing or like watching these drafts, maybe you want to do these drafts. If you're new to Underdog Fantasy, deposit $100, they will give you a $100 deposit bonus. So deposit 100, you get an additional 100. It's a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. So if you only want to deposit $25, go right ahead. They'll give you an additional $25. I love drafting on here, and it's just very fun, right? Because a lot of the time, well, basically every time, no one's doing a redraft fantasy draft in March. No one gives a shit. But, you know, March Madness is the big thing. But we can still draft a team here and potentially come back here in January and have won a shit ton of money, right? First place, $200,000. And the best thing about this is we can get in early on certain players. Again, Javonte Williams might be like a 4th round draft pick. Quentin Johnson might be much higher up than where we got him. So I'm pretty excited about that. Some people will argue that Jordan Addison should have been drafted ahead of him. Push and pull, you know, you can make that argument. I'm not going to fight with you. Tony in the 7th round feels disgusting. I would rather get stabbed in the cock hole by O.J. Simpson than do something like that. Just can't do it. I know he's a good player. He just cannot stay healthy. The Chiefs, they're going to bring in other guys, I think. I don't know. It just seems gross. A little bit of a quarterback run here in the 7th, 8th rounds with Prescott, Watson, Daniel Jones. I talked about Daniel Jones in a YouTube short. If you didn't watch that, my take is I get why they brought him back. I don't understand the contract. I don't know how you can pay 4 years, all that money for a guy that's just mid. I guess that's just how the quarterback market is going to go now. I guess that's just how the cookie's going to crumble. People are going to want to pay up for these guys that aren't as good. Geno got the big deal too, and I don't think Geno is very good. So I guess that's just kind of how shit goes. I'd love to get Kirk Cousins to pair with Lamar Jackson. Again, I think in a normal redraft league, you would be a fool to draft Lamar and then just draft Kirk Cousins in the 8th, 9th round. But I think it is a lot more acceptable in best ball. That's just kind of how I see things. Again, you want to have 3 quarterbacks in here. This is a 20-round draft. This isn't just like your normal 13 rounds and then you have your kicker and your defense rounds 14, 15. So, I don't know. I just look at things a little bit differently. Let me know down below in the comments section what you've thought about our draft so far. And then comment again at the end, you know. As many comments as you leave helps the video out even more. So, leave as many comments as you want. I don't think Waller's going to be back with the Raiders. I think he's a pretty solid value right now. I'd love to get Jacoby Myers. He might be on the way out of the Patriots, but I think he could be dangerous on another team. I like Brandon Cooks as well. I like Hyatt, but he tested terribly, so we're just going to grab Kirk Cousins here and then kind of talk through this. I think Hyatt, coming out of Tennessee, could still be really good. We kind of have the youth already on our team, so I'm going to go with a little bit of an older guy here, Jacoby Myers. I've been on the Jacoby Myers bandwagon for the last 2 years at this point. I'm still a pretty strong believer in him. Again, I don't know if he'll be back with the Patriots or not, but I do think that he is a talented enough player to warrant pick 9.1 in fantasy drafts. And again, I'm kind of shocked that he was available at this spot. Again, kind of to rehash what I was talking about, normally, you draft Lamar Jackson. I don't even draft a backup in redraft. But in best ball, you need to try to make sure every week you're hitting your ceiling. And while Kirk Cousins isn't the most ceiling guy, you're going to see a game where Justin Jefferson could score 2-3 touchdowns, right? Where Justin Jefferson goes crazy. And now I have Kirk Cousins linked with him. I think maybe we should look for some late Baltimore Ravens guys. But again, the Ravens outside of Andrews and Bateman, like, you're kind of just grasping at straws. I like Isaiah Likely late because if Andrews was to go down, Likely has the upside to be a top 5 tight end in those weeks, top 3 tight end because he's good enough. But again, not a guy that I'm clamoring for. So it's kind of like the Ravens running backs are, they're not the running backs. The Ravens just wide receiver core is just gross right now, where things are sitting. Now, again, free agency hasn't happened. The NFL draft hasn't happened. So things are going to change. And that's why it's so fun to kind of take the shots now. Because again, once you look at these drafts in late August, early September, the ADPs are going to be drastically different in a lot of situations, especially with these younger players. Again, like Quentin Johnson or Jalen Hyatt. Their ADP could be much higher. Like, oh, Nick's a genius for drafting them. I didn't draft Hyatt, but you get what I'm saying. Or maybe, wow, Nick shouldn't have drafted them there because they went to a bad spot. Cole Kmet, Darren Waller, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Brandon Cooks, Miles Sanders, Zach Charbonnet, Brian Robinson, A.J. Dillon, David Njoku, Freiermuth, Elijah Moore, Hyatt, and Zay Jones. I really do believe getting youth on these rosters is super key in best ball, especially in these early drafts, because again, these young guys, their ADPs can move drastically, and they don't have a landing spot right now. Maybe Josh Downs, I don't know too much about him. Maybe he ends up being great. Maybe he ends up sucking. But again, that early ADP, Kayshon Boutte out of LSU, this was a guy that people were really kind of on the train for, and the guy performed terribly at the combine. He looked bad. So again, it's interesting how things could shift even from just that point in the combine just like a week ago. Anthony Richardson is probably one of the hottest talking points all the way up to ADP 150. I think I got him in like the 19th round of one of these drafts I've done already. His ADP is going to skyrocket. Is he any good is a question like people might have. I've watched his tape. I think he doesn't look the best. He has all of the freak athlete things to him though. He has that crazy rushing upside. He has that speed. He has the arm strength, potentially. The question is, though, is he accurate enough? Is he good enough to do it at the NFL level? We'll see. We'll see. It almost feels like a trap when you draft him, but you could also talk yourself into, oh, this is the next Lamar. This is the next Jalen Hurts. Now, will that come to fruition in his rookie year? I'm not sure, but if he's a top 10 pick, which he's probably going to be, if he lands in the right situation, he could be a day one starter. And again, a day one starter with crazy rushing upside in fantasy football, people are going to ejaculate. They are going to prematurely ejaculate in their pants just thinking about that. Again, we have our running backs, Derrick Henry, Breece Hall, Javonte Williams. You can't just leave the draft with 3 running backs, especially with Javonte Williams and Breece Hall kind of coming into the season hurt. But I'm not sitting here thinking, oh man, should I draft Gainwell? Should I draft Kareem Hunt where he's going to go? Devin off the chain, Sean Tucker. Right, you're not really thinking about that. You're kind of just drafting wide receivers and tight ends here. Dawson Knox, I like a decent amount. I'm kind of back on him yet again. Let's grab Dawson Knox here, and then we are going to draft. I like KJ Osborne because I think Thielen's on the way out. I think he's a decent kind of dancing partner with Kirk Cousins, but I don't know if you need to just dive so heavily in onto stacks right now. I think there'll be another wide receiver in New York with the Giants with Wan'Dale Robinson. But from what we saw on a very small sample size, it's not like Wan'Dale Robinson was healthy all season long. He did look good enough to be worthy of a late 10th, 11th round kind of flyer pick. Now, in best ball drafts, it's not as much of a flyer because we still have 20 rounds, right? It's not like there's just 15 rounds, but you get what I'm saying, right? He's worth that upside shot. I went with Dawson Knox because, again, it seemed like something was off last year. He got the big contract. He's still a big piece of this team. So again, while maybe he didn't perform up to your liking, my liking personally as someone who was banging the drum aggressively for him last year, he's still linked to one of the best offenses in the NFL. He's still linked to one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's a big red zone threat for the team. And it seems like they ramped his usage up closer towards the NFL playoffs. So maybe if he starts off getting more early on action, he could end up paying off. Again, when you're past these tight ends, these early tight ends, I know I'm kind of in the middle of the board, but you get what I'm saying. After the Kelsey, the Kittle, the Hawkinson, the Andrews, the Pitts, the Goddard, it kind of gets into a mishmash range, right? How much better is Evan Ingram than Cole Kmet? They go 10 picks away. Darren Waller could be great, could be good, could be very shit, if you know that clip, right? David Njoku, Pat Freiermuth, Knox. Like, there isn't much of a difference. Maybe you have a preference, but I don't think you're going to be kind of screaming to the mountaintops, Nick, I love Dawson, or I love Cole Kmet way more than David Njoku, right? I don't think anyone's going to have some crazy argument, right? I think you're just going to pick whoever the fuck falls to you. Kyler, very interesting pick when it comes to Kyler Murray, because if this guy comes back week 6, week 7, maybe he's that late round guy that you need. Maybe he's that guy that is able to elevate himself to that top 3 quarterback that you want him to be. Or maybe they're losing every game. Maybe they suck donkey dick. Maybe they're awful. And now you're looking at week 7. Maybe he comes back, and then you read, oh, they're going to actually, you know, he might be ready to come back. This team has won a game. They've won 1 game. Maybe we shut him down. Now, again, I don't know if they're going to do that, but they have so much invested into Kyler Murray that if they're dog shit and he can't come back early on, could they put him on ice? Yes. Wouldn't shock me one bit. We have kind of just been talking all around. We haven't been following the draft too much, so if you want to pause at any point, look at the draft board, go right ahead. Very interesting to see where these rookie quarterbacks go in the NFL draft. Is there a way, is free agent going to show the rookies? Rookie. I wish it did. But guys like Stroud, Richardson, Bryce Young, where do these guys go in the NFL draft? Who goes where? Because landing spot is going to dictate heavily where people get drafted. Stafford's apparently getting shopped by the Rams right now. I don't want anything to do with Stafford. I was a big Stafford guy last year. It's clear that he's going into this season again hurt. He's going to be banged up. Now, is he going to be awful? Probably not. But when you have these youth players in best ball where you're hunting for the maximum upside, right? You need to hit the nuts to win. You need to hit these crazy players. Is Matthew Stafford, with his fucked up neck, back, my back, lick my pussy and my crack, is he going to be good enough? Probably not. Zeke going in the 12th round. What a fall from grace for the big man, Zeke. You hate to see that. Hate to see that. We don't have enough Giants to want to stack. We don't have Daniel Jones, so we don't need to stack with Isaiah Hodgins, but he's pretty interesting as well. Rondale Moore has had bright spots. He's on the Cardinals. Again, the Cardinals are... Who knows what they're going to look like without Kyler Murray, but I do still think they're pretty interesting. I love Mike Gesicki this year. I'm pretty sure I drafted him on every team, so if he ends up sucking, that's going to be on me. But I like him a ton. Like him a ton. But I think he's going to be on a different team, not the Dolphins. So we're going to go with Bowdy. Again, if you watch the tape in college, he looked good, just didn't test well. We'll see what happens. Again, taking these deep shots on these rookies late, I think, is pretty solid strategy. Dubes, I don't think we've seen his best, what the best he could be. But again, the quarterback situation is a little scary. Same with Rondale Moore, but I just feel like Rondale Moore has that crazy big play upside. Like, I think Rondale Moore could be the guy that when I need him most drops 25 points. Like, do I see Dobbs having that crazy upside? Especially which one I love? Probably not. I think that Dobbs has that maybe consistency where if you're in a redraft league, maybe ends up being a guy, top 24 receiver every week. Throw him in your lineup. But is that what's going to win me the money? No. Right? When I already have Jefferson, who's like locked in every single week, Drake London, Quentin Johnson, Jacoby Myers, Wan'Dale Robinson, we already have these guys that I like. Do I need that safety net? Do I need Romeo Dubes, who I don't think is the craziest talent? No, I don't. And if I didn't draft Kirk Cousins, I probably would have drafted Anthony Richardson strictly off of the upside. We already have 2 quarterbacks that I like. I don't think we need to be clamoring for a third just yet, but at some point, it's basically useless to draft another quarterback. So if we can't get one of these guys, like for instance, Brock Purdy, I can see starting for the Niners next year. Desmond Ridder, while I don't think he's really that good, he could be the starting quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons. But then you get down to Malik Willis, Tyler Huntley, Teddy Roosevelt, Jacoby Brissett, right? These guys that I just don't see really playing games. So at a certain point, you have to kind of turn off the narrative in your brain that you're going to draft 3 quarterbacks. Because at a certain point, it's just not worth it. Like, I'd rather just kind of take that deep shot from 3 on some wide receiver that may not even play very often, but has more upside if injuries go their way than kind of a quarterback that I just don't see playing. Rashid Shaheed, I love. Michael Thomas probably going to be back, but I don't know. I think with Derek Carr, this team's just significantly better than with Andy Dalton. I wish Jameis could have played more last year. I'm a big Jameis Winston truther. I've been a Jameis guy for a very long time. And I'd love to see Jameis back in action, but is he really going to be given that scenario? I'm not too sure. At this point in the draft, it's looking pretty bleak at the running back position, but again, we already have our guys. We have Henry, we have Breece Hall, we have Javonte Williams. So while we still want to draft 5 running backs, we're not necessarily looking, when we draft this guy here, it's not like they're needed every week, right? On the bye week, sure, hopefully this guy could elevate themselves. Maybe they could have a huge spike game, or maybe they become the guy on their team. That's definitely a hope for some of these players, but it's not like I drafted a bunch of wide receivers super early on and now I'm kind of stressing out here at the running back position. Leonard Fournette, I think he's going to land on a spot, hopefully on a cheap contract, and maybe he ends up being worthy of a 14th, 15th round pick, right? Maybe he just becomes the guy on a team because of an injury, but he doesn't have, he didn't look like the Leonard Fournette from the rest of his career last year. Now, again, I'm not saying he's finished. He has no fantasy value, but it's not like in the 14th, 15th round, I'm ecstatic to draft Leonard Fournette. I like Samaje Perine a lot. Now, Samaje Perine hasn't been a guy that's put up crazy numbers in his career, but with all this Mixon shit and Mixon potentially leaving, Perine has a role on the team. He's going to catch some passes. If the running back that they end up drafting maybe, or whoever they bring in ends up going down, Samaje Perine clearly has some value to this team. Again, our running back core is relatively young outside of Derrick Henry, so I think drafting an older Samaje Perine who has a decent amount of upside seems relatively fair to me. And then we're just going to draft Mike Gesicki, hopefully. Again, I'm heavy onto the Mike Gesicki bandwagon. I think Mike Gesicki really could be that guy on another team, assuming he leaves the Dolphins. This guy, before last year, look, 112 fucking targets. This guy is a legitimate wide receiver threat. The problem is that Mike McDaniel is too set in his ways of needing a tight end that's good at blocking, and Mike Gesicki is the polar opposite of that. Mike Gesicki is awful at blocking. He's about as useful as a broken condom in terms of protection, but hey, he's still a really good wide receiver weapon for a team at the tight end position, and he can block. But he's not amazing. Not very good at all, if I'm being honest with you. Maybe he'll learn. Maybe he will learn. People are steaming up Dalton Kincaid. Kind of just an interesting name to talk about. When you wait this long on tight end, right? When you have Knox, when you have Gesicki, I'm drafting 3 tight ends. I don't think that's really a hot take. I think, especially with these onesie positions, if you don't get the guy, if you don't get the guy that you love, if you don't get that super early tight end, when you're kind of scroundering, I don't know what the fuck the word is, but when you're scavenging, that's the word, that's the term, when you're scavenging for a tight end super late in drafts, when you've already kind of told yourself you stiff-armed the early tight ends, I'm just waiting and drafting 3. In a redraft league, I'm never going to do that, though, right? I'm fine drafting 2. Drafting 3 is a little bit crazy. And then we're going to kind of just draft another running back and then probably just hammer some wide receivers. And again, the quarterback situation is looking a little bleak at this point. Will Levis, though, again, I don't really think he's great, but there's going to be a team that drafts him, and there's a non-zero chance that he plays 8 games this season, right? He could easily play half the season, and maybe this team's just dead, right? Because maybe Lamar Jackson just fucking hates the Ravens. He doesn't even step on the field. Maybe that's the case, right? Maybe that's what we're looking at, and I look like a fool, but again, that's just the advantage we're getting right now. We got him 9 picks behind ADP, right? 40.3, we get him at pick 49. So there's definitely value in selecting him. Again, I'm not enamored with Lamar Jackson right now because of that. But again, with the skill set of Lamar Jackson, with the upside he has to be the #1 quarterback in fantasy football, with the crazy amount of rushing upside, if I passed on him with that pick, I definitely probably would have regretted it. So we're just going to end up pulling the trigger on him there, obviously. Sam Howell, again, a guy that could easily just be the starting quarterback of the Commanders. I don't get why Mac Jones is being slept on this much. I don't think Mac Jones is good at all. I don't, but I think in the correct system, with an offensive coordinator that's not a dumbass, Mac Jones has usable weeks in fantasy. He just does. He has games where he's going to be good. So I don't really understand why people are just passing on him that hard. I think people like Zach Evans a decent amount. I think I'd rather just take the shot on Jaylen Warren. Like, it seems like the team really wanted to use him last year at points, and if Najee was to go down, I think Jaylen Warren is one of the best handcuffs in fantasy football based upon what we saw out of him last year. And again, maybe they go to running back by committee. That's not the Mike Tomlin take normally, so I don't think that's what's going to happen. But could it happen? Definitely. So I think Jaylen Warren's a really good pick at this point. And then we're going to just hammer in our wide receivers after we go with Jaylen Warren. And then we're going to go with Isaiah Likely. Again, potential stacking partner with Lamar Jackson. And then after that, like, the tight ends are just so gross. So I'd rather just get the guys that I like. And now we're just going to hammer wide receivers. Allen Robinson gone from the Rams. He's been given permission to seek trade. He's definitely out of there. Sucked ass last year. Could he bounce back, though? I don't know. Again, he didn't look good at all last year, so it's not like he wasn't given the opportunity. I know things didn't go well for the Rams, but based upon what we watched last year, can you really have any ounce of confidence? Like, could any part of you, when you select Allen Robinson, be like, you know what? I think he's got the... Like, I'd rather just draft Van Jefferson because he's fast as fuck and has that big play upside. Now, as an Allen Robinson truther, as someone who loves Allen Robinson and has liked him for a decent amount of time, I hope whatever team he goes to, he ends up being amazing. Like, I do hope that, but I have to take, like, I'm not going into the draft super biased, right? I'm not saying just because I've loved Allen Robinson in the past, it didn't seem like he had it last year. Like, Isaiah McKenzie's a solid pick as well, late in drafts. Marvin Mims, Rashad White, Rashad White, I almost said Rashad White, Rashad Rice, Richie James. I'm Rick James, bitch. Again, these wide receivers super late are a little bit gross, but we're kind of in the position where we have... Did we already make our 17th round pick? Let's see. Yeah, we did. So we have the 18th, the 19th, the 20th. We have 3 picks left. I don't necessarily think we need to go through receivers. We might want to sprinkle another late round running back in there. We could even draft a quarterback if Levis falls to us. But otherwise, we're going to hammer in on wide receivers here. Because, again, this is a 3 wide receiver draft with 1 flex. So you want to make sure you have... these upside plays at the wide receiver position. I think our wide receiver core is really good considering how good our running backs are, right? Because we have Henry, we have Hall, we have Williams. It's very plausible that Henry, Hall, and Williams are in every single week once they're all healthy, right? We have Henry and Hall, RB1, RB2, and then the flex, Javonte Williams. So I think this team does look really good on paper. Again, the wide receiver core isn't amazing, and maybe people would like to have better wide receiver cores, but I think we make up with it with the fact that we have Lamar and Kirk Cousins. Especially Lamar, obviously, because of that insane rushing upside that he is to just, in any given week, be the reason why you win. Again, the tight ends are gross, but if you don't draft one of those top 6, 7 tight ends like I talked about in the video, you're going to hate your tight end core. You're just going to, you're going to have to hope that every week one of these guys hits, and then you're going to end up not being too pissed. So that's really why I understand why people draft Kelsey so highly in drafts right now. Again, he was the 5th pick. What's his ADP? I'd be interested to see. I think it's probably around 8. Travis Kelsey, ADP 5. I get it. I definitely get it. Am I going to do that? Probably not, but I definitely get it. Not everyone has 3 quarterbacks, so it seems like maybe the 3 quarterback mantra that was kind of swinging around early on these drafts, maybe people are looking to fade away a little bit more. Kyle Trask is the quarterback of the Bucs. I don't think he's any good at all. He was okay at Florida. Like, in terms of how he played at Florida, he was good, but I don't think that if you watch the tape of Kyle Trask, you'll be like, wow, this guy's going to be good in the NFL, right? And he wasn't drafted very highly. There's talks of Tom Brady coming back. Okay, I get if you want to draft him in like one draft. If you're doing a zillion of these, I get it. Not for me though. Like Will Levis, do people just fucking hate this guy? Like I understand that he doesn't look great, but do people literally hate this guy? How is he? If he falls to me, I'm taking him. Again, I don't think he's like this crazy talent, but at some point you just have to say, fuck it, I'm going to draft another quarterback that has upside, right? Will Levis has good upside. So I don't get why he's fallen this far, if I'm being completely honest with you. One of these guys will probably take him, though. And if they take him, I'm not drafting another quarterback, right? Tannehill might be the quarterback of the Titans, might not be. It's just gross. Like, these other guys, Ritter, just disgusting. Brock Purdy's, I guess, the only other acceptable one. Levis falls to us. We're going to go wide receiver here. Devin Duvernay. We have Lamar. Duvernay has that upside. I think Robert Woods could also be good given the right situation. He just didn't. He had so many targets last year. The Titans were a disaster. We're to just draft Robert Woods. I understand he's old as fuck, but he got cut. He'll be on a different team. Maybe he could get it done. I don't know. It is kind of gross, some of these wide receivers we have, but again, that's why we've drafted so many. That's why we're going to have 9. To just hope that we can find 3 or 4 every single week that are good enough. Same thing with the tight end position. That's why we drafted so many. And that's why our running back core looks so good. We're not drafting a 5th running back with this team. We're just not. I don't think it's worth it. I think I'd rather have 9 wide receivers because our wide receiver core, again, is not the most exciting. Again, I like Jefferson, obviously. I love London. I like Quentin Johnson a decent amount. I love Jacoby Myers. But then outside of that, we have Wandale, who's kind of just meh. People are nicknaming this guy Kayshawn Booty, so he doesn't look the best either. But again, it's all about understanding how we drafted. If we went super heavy on wide receiver early, you'd be looking at the running backs like, they're kind of gross. We have the good quarter, like we have Lamar, we have Kirk Cousins. Will Levis is that kind of fire you throw onto the team, right? Could be great, could be really bad. Might not even play a single game in the NFL this year. But he has that upside. He has that skill set to where if everything goes right, if he lands on a team, if he's this high draft pick, if the team's going to play him, he's bound to land in the lineup at least once. Some people will argue against that if they draft Lamar super early. But again, I think the reason why I drafted 3rd quarterback really is because I drafted Lamar. If we're sitting here and we have Herbert and Kirk Cousins, or maybe Fields and Kirk Cousins, Hurts and Kirk Cousins, there's no reason to draft a 3rd quarterback because I'm set in with the QB1 that I have and then Kirk Cousins. The problem is Lamar Jackson. There's just a lot going around with him. And this draft's probably dead even if Lamar just sits out or something. But he's just this unknown, right? We don't know what team he's going to be on. There's a lot that we don't know. That makes me more likely to draft 3 quarterbacks. And maybe I'm being a pussy. And maybe that is going to hurt my chances of winning. Or maybe that's going to be the exact reason why I end up winning. So we shall see. We shall see. Again, it's only March. We got a long, long time till the NFL season starts. And the best part about this is it closes at the end of April. It's already 55% filled. It's going to fill before that. These drafts are very, very fun. So let me know what you guys thought about our team here. And again, we need another wide receiver. Duvernay fell to us. None of these wide receivers, these rookie guys, like maybe one of these guys ends up being good, but let's be honest with you. We're just going to stack Lamar with Devin Duvernay. We've already done 4 of these and 1 little board. We need to do another little bird. I'm the biggest bird. We need to do another little board because it's only 2 max. This is the team we got here again to recap. Lamar Jackson, Kirk Cousins, and Will Levis. Our running backs are Derrick Henry, Breece Hall, Javonte Williams, Samaje P. Ryan, and Jalen Warren. Our wide receivers are Justin Jefferson, Drake London, Quentin Johnston, Jacoby Myers, Wandale Robinson, Kayshawn Booty, Rondale Moore, Roberto Woods, Bobby Trees, and then Devin Duvernay. Our tight ends are Dawson Knox one time, if you are with me, Mike Licky, Amagasicki, and Isaiah Likely. So let me know down below in the comment section what you thought about this team. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Let me know. Love talking to you guys down there. Hope you guys all have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy!